to kind of get that started. And looks like we have a couple of people trickling in as well too. So we're super excited. So up until now, the recording is going to be cut off, and we're going to start now. And so welcome to the First Gen workshop. That was super awkward, but that's okay. We're just going to go with this. But this is a workshop. It's geared towards our students who are first generation, and the first in their family to go to college, but it is open for all students. We thought it'd be a really great opportunity to offer this workshop, just to kind of give you guys the ins and out, because it's a scary thing to do, going in through this whole transition phase. And so before I, keep yappering on, I'm going to actually have my colleagues go ahead and introduce themselves, and we're going to kind of get started that way. So you're on my left, Maddie, and we're going to go straight across. So Maddie, can you, we'll get started with you.
Yay. Okay, cool. I'm sorry if there's a leaf blower. Someone's blowing leaves outside. So my name is Maddie. I know that I got to work with a few of you, and so it's so good to see your little faces and your little Zoom box. So like Gina said, this is a opportunity to work with you guys a little more one-on-one, because Rudy, Gina, and I are all the first in our families to go through college, and part of the reason why we love our jobs is to be a support to you guys. And so we decided we'd give a little bit of background on ourselves and like how we found college, how we got to Pacific. All of us have 2 degrees. So why do we have 2 degrees, and do you need one? And also what we think we can provide you guys. So my background is that both my parents, I had a split home, parents were divorced, and both of them were entrepreneurs. So they own their own businesses. The highest degree they had was high school. And I have 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers, and I am the first of my 4 siblings. That's 5. I'm the first one to go through college and get a degree. And then my older brother, he did end up going to community college for a couple of years and then transferred to a large public institution and got his degree there. So his was a little bit longer. Mine was like right out of high school, like you guys. I applied to a public school and a private school, and the public school lost like my SAT scores and my application, and I didn't have enough money to send them again. So I didn't actually get admitted. I only got admitted to 1 school. So that made my choice easy. I know that some of you were kind of, deciding between different colleges. And so the private school wouldn't stop calling. So I was like, great, that's where I'm going. And so I entered in as like pre-med, and thankfully found something else, but not because of mentoring, but because I failed my chemistry class. And so we can kind of talk more openly about that and how you find like your major and your interest. And then I came up here to Oregon to go to graduate school and did a master's degree in counseling. And so that's what brings me here to you guys, is working with students through this process, because I was definitely alone. And so it was kind of my journey of what got me to Pacific. So yeah, Rudy, do you want to go next?
Yes, I can go next. So yeah, I'm Rudy, and I had the privilege of not only working at Pacific, but I went there. Like Maddie and Gina, I'm a first-gen student, and I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. My mom takes care of kids. My dad was a mechanic. Neither of them graduated from high school. And so I was the first one to graduate from high school, and then I was the first and currently the only one to go to a 4-year college and get my bachelor's degree. And from early on in high school, I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't really get the full scope of what that meant until late in my senior year. But I just knew that I loved school and I wanted to keep doing it. And at the end of my junior year, I realized that I wanted to run in college. I went to a track meet with college athletes. It was my first collegiate event live ever, and fell in love with the crowd, fell in love with the feeling of it. And I was like, yeah, I am doing this. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. My coach, my track coach was my mentor. I still see him when I visit my high school and I recruit, and I always say hi and I thank him for everything that he did, because he did not need to help me. I was his runner, but he also happened to be a counselor. He wasn't my counselor, but he helped me find 4 schools I did apply to. He helped me fill out the FAFSA and translated my financial aid package for me. So I'm very thankful to have him in my life, and for the fact that he helped me on my journey. And he gave me 4 schools, and I told him I wanted to stay in state. That was very important to me. I wanted a small school because by then I realized that I was going to need help in college, and I wasn't too comfortable with asking for help back then. But I knew that I wanted a small environment where that would be easier, and I would get that help and support when I needed it. And I wanted a school with a good science program because that's originally what I wanted to study. And he gave me 4 schools, including Pacific. 2 really recruited me hard, and both teams contacted me. Pacific's coach, who later became my coach, he invited me for an overnight visit, and I was just instantly welcomed. Second I set foot on campus, I knew. I was like, yes, this is it. This is my first choice. And I ended up choosing it in May to, enroll and come here. And when I was here, like Maddie, I was going to be a pre-med focused student. I also struggled in chemistry my first year, but I also realized that I didn't want to necessarily be a scientist anymore. I kind of wanted to be more, I didn't want to be in a lab. I wanted to be in the field. And so I switched majors to environmental biology. Almost all my labs are outside, which I really liked. And then through one of my clubs I was involved with, I realized that I really liked education and the link between education and science and everything. So I really got the whole liberal arts and what it's all about at Pacific my junior year. It really just clicked then, and I realized I want to maybe be a teacher, or I want to do something in the field of education, which is what led to my job after graduation. I served at a nonprofit for 2 years, helping first generation students like us get to college. That was my job. I helped improve SAT scores. I helped students fill out the FAFSA. I chaperoned college visits. I helped through every step of the enrollment process that you guys are currently going through. And then I went to grad school at Columbia, and I give a lot of thanks to Pacific and my nonprofit, because I definitely got the foundation that I need to do well at an Ivy League school. I mean, I was definitely blown away at first, but the help and the things that I learned along the way definitely helped me get through it. And a month later, I came back to Oregon. I saw a job opening at Pacific, and I got hired, and I've been here ever since. Gina, it's your turn.
Awesome. So my journey was not traditional in every sense of the way. I graduated high school after junior year. I had taken, like electives and classes to be done after junior year. And so I took a year off and I studied abroad rather than having a senior year, which I do regret. I kind of wish I had a senior year in high school. And I know your guys' senior year has been kind of interrupted. And so, I know that feeling. You feel like you're missing out. It was a huge milestone to kind of celebrate. And I can tell you, for me, because it was my choice, I do kind of regret not having that senior year. Then when I was looking at colleges, I'll be honest, I was a horrible test taker. I would have been enrolled in every AP and honors class at any time midterm or finals came through. That's when my grades would plummet. And that was just kind of a thing for me. I don't know why. I wasn't ever nervous about test taking. I wasn't ever scared about it, but I know I would always be the first to finish. And my teachers would always tell me, Gina, you need to double check your answers. And I would double check them, and I'd go back and change them, and I would change them to the wrong answer. So I stopped doing that. And I just realized test taking is not my forte. And so obviously you can assume my SAT scores were not the best, and it just wasn't. Being a first gen,
I did have an older brother who's a year older than me, and we fought all the time. We were polar opposites, so he wasn't really interested in school. And so for my parents, I was kind of the last hope, and I didn't really have a choice about college. It was just kind of like an unspoken, like, duh, Gina, you're going to college. But I didn't know how to apply. I didn't know that you were supposed to visit colleges. It just sounded like it was something that was only open for families who had money. My parents owned a restaurant, and for them to close the restaurant for a few days to go on a trip, that's going to cost them money and, you know, check into a hotel and go to a university. It just was a huge cost that my parents just couldn't do. And so for me, I was doing everything blind, and I had no clue what a college fair was. Our high school didn't offer a college fair. And understanding financial aid package, I'll be honest with you, I didn't understand it until I started working at Pacific. And this is after I've already gotten my undergrad and master's, and I worked at the university for about 4 or 5 years. So it's a long kind of road to navigate, and it can be super confusing. So what we want to do is to be able to offer help to you guys. And I do want to say, and it's kind of cliche, there is no such thing as a dumb question. I had no clue what FAFSA was. I didn't know what financial aid meant. I didn't understand what work study was, and people would try to explain it to me, and I was just like, okay, great. I'm just going to get a job off campus, because it just sounds super confusing that I have to think about like certain dollar amounts. Like, it just wasn't making any sense to me. Again, test scores was not something that I was really good at. So I actually went to community college for 2 years. And that was down in California. I moved down to California for school. I did 2 years of community college, and they had a great program called the TAG program. So it's a transfer admission guarantee. So you take a certain amount of classes at the CC, and you're guaranteed admission. So I went to UCSD. Sounds super prestigious because it is a UC school. Definitely not how I got there, though. I just did the community college transfer, tag agreement, got to UCSD, ended up having to take 2.5 years off to help out at my parents' restaurant. So I was a super uber non-traditional student. I graduated college at 24, took a little bit longer than most people. And I became a professor. I was an ESL professor in Korea. I lived abroad as soon as I left because I didn't know how to look for a job. I didn't know that there were these resources on campus where you can go and get your resume looked at, and you can practice interview skills. I wish I knew what these resources were, but it was just not something that it was told to me. And the resources on campus always very much seemed like centers for people who are super uber active, and I was not that type. I was very much like, I got my own thing going on. I had to work pretty much full time through college and just trying to pretty much survive. And so going to these resource centers, it just sounded like I don't fit the bill. I'm not going to be super involved or committed to it, so I'm not going to even step foot into these centers. And that was a huge misunderstanding on my part, and I missed a huge missed opportunity. And so, I just didn't use that, and I went to Korea and taught English. And the first thing everybody was like, so when are you going to get your master's? I'm like, what do you mean? I just graduated 3 months ago. I'm done with schooling. So the master's came a little bit later, but I'm glad it did. And my master's was through an online program. And so I understand the online classes are not as exciting or engaging as being in person. So I feel you guys, it's not the most exciting thing. But I got my master's through instruction and education. So it's curriculum building. Not teaching anymore, so I'm not really using it, but still in education. And so that's kind of what our background story was. And we would love to be able to hear your story. Maddie, do you want to kind of take over from here?
Yes. So this might be a lot of information today. We have a few different things that we're going to cover, but we also wanted to check in with you guys. So I know we have a couple people that have their windows open and then a few that don't. And so if you guys, I can kind of call on you. If you just want to say maybe your name and what city and state you're from, because I know we have a few different students from different places here today. And then, if there is anything that you're nervous about, or if you have a question right off the bat, you want to have us weave into our agenda today, we can. But please know that in the chat, you do have the option to put in your questions. Because even if we don't get to it today, we can always follow up with you guys. So you're going to share, and I'll type this in the chat. So you're going to share your name, and then you're going to share your city and state. And if there's anything about being, any first gen experience that you might have, or maybe you're not first generation student. And so is there any advice that you have? So any first gen details that you want to share? And then just tell us your favorite summer activity. Some of us, are excited that summer's here. So go ahead and tell us what your favorite summer activity. So Megan, friend, I'm going to have you go first. So I put the prompt in the chat so you can refer to it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to read that for a second.
Okay.
I was listening, but I'm like, I need it like on the side so I know what
Okay,
I'm
Megan.
Yeah. So I was trying to think as we were going through. Okay, yeah. So I'm Megan Farmer and I'm from North Bend, Oregon, so down South Coast. And so what do you mean by any first gen details? Like any questions I have or anything like that?
Yeah, any questions or anything you're nervous about? Like, hey, Maddie, I don't know what to bring for move-in, anything like that too.
Well, that is a good question. Okay, so the one thing that was in my head is because like Gina mentioned work study, I do need to know how that works. So if you could mention how that works, that'd be great. My favorite summer activity? I don't do very well with heat because my grandma's like full-blooded Swedish. So my favorite summer activity is probably just like sitting inside.
My girl.
Sometimes taking my dog to the beach.
Yes,
That's pretty
that's
fun.
my girl.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, I love that. Thank you, Megan. Okay, Caitlin, I'm gonna have you go next.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm from Portland and Clackamas, Oregon. I don't really have any first gen details. I'm just anxious and nervous. And my favorite summer activity would probably be spending time with my family and playing tennis.
Love it. Okay, Sadie, you are next.
My name is Sadie Sproul. I'm from Jefferson, Oregon, but also Salem, Oregon, because I am in Jefferson with my mom and Salem with my dad. My questions that was one thing, was bringing stuff for my dorm because I have so much stuff and I just want to make sure that I have enough storage space. So that's the thing that I've been dealing with lately. And then my favorite summer activity, I'm from a really big family, so one of the best things that we do is we go on road trips or we'll just drive. And I love driving with the windows down and music on and everything because everybody's just relaxed.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree. I love that. Thank you, Sadie. Okay, Augusto, your turn.
Hi, I'm Augusto Sanchez Cisneros. I'm from the Troutdale, Portland area. And the question I had was work study as well, because I'm very confused on that and how to apply for that. Also, what kind of materials are allowed to bring into the dorm rooms or what isn't. And my favorite summer activity is hiking and going swimming.
Very cool. Okay, awesome. Just so you guys know, I'm taking notes, Gina.
Same, yeah. Okay, good.
Cool. Okay.
I'm not
all right.
paying attention. I'm paying attention. I'm just writing.
Fisher, you're next.
I think you put his response in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Fisher. Okay, he is from Davidson, North Carolina.
Wow.
Wow. And how will move-in be organized and handled? Really good question, considering that you guys are a group of students that are dealing with some different ways that Pacific is doing things. And then favorite thing he does is camping and or hiking. I love this. We got a lot of outdoorsy people. This is good. Okay. Em, are you there? I think you're popping in. There you are, girl. Okay. Do you want to tell us your name, city, and state? Any first gen questions and your favorite activity?
My name is Emhe and I am from Wilsonville, Oregon. I I don't know what my questions are. Like, I just want to be able to explain to my parents like the whole college thing because they don't get it at all yet.
Ah,
And they're like, they think that I'm gonna be home like all the time and like I'm gonna be able to still like help and like do all this stuff. And that's the one thing I don't know about.
yeah, that's huge. That's huge because if there's any of you that are going to be living at home too, versus commuting student versus living on campus, yeah, those are different dynamics. Thank you, Em. Favorite summer activity?
I like fishing and hiking and swimming and teaching swim lessons.
Nice.
Okay, we guys already have like a little outdoor friend group. Megan can watch from indoors.
Stay with me. Megan and I will watch from under with our dogs.
Yeah. Okay, First Moon, it is your turn.
My name is First Moon Vanessa, and I'm from Salem, Oregon. I guess my question would be, what does orientation look like for that first day? And then my favorite summer activity is swimming and hiking as well.
Cool. Love that. So we do have Hags Lake, which I've never been to, but a lot of students do end up go swimming. So it's pretty good.
Does doggy paddle count as swimming? Because I'm a pro doggy paddler. I can say that.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Thanks. Thank you. I was
Okay,
like, no.
Ethan, it is your turn.
Hi, my name is Ethan Needham. I used to live in Oregon, but as of a month ago, I now live in Arizona. It is a pandemic-related thing. I suppose my main question would be probably because of my recent move is I need to discover like a lot on the more online aspect of side of the school. And my favorite summer activities are working on my manuscripts and hiking. So I do a lot of shut-in and outdoor stuff. I'm just like a pendulum swing when it comes to that. So I'm either really outdoorsy or I do not leave the house.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Ethan. That's a good question about online. So, Zoe, it is your turn.
I'm Zoe, and I'm from Washougal, Washington. It's like 2 towns over from Vancouver. My main question was stuff about the financial aid packets and like how to get like the student loans and stuff, because we were originally going to drive down back to the campus to like get a packet, but I don't know how that's going to work with like the virus and stuff. And my other question is, are you allowed to have succulents and like small plants in the dorms?
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna answer that one right away. Yeah, I'm gonna say
Okay.
yes.
And my favorite activity is hiking and doing like art and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yay. I'm gonna write down plants just in case. Okay, cool. Well, I know that we have a couple other students whose windows aren't open, but I'm gonna call on you anyways. Tara, did you want to share any information? You can just type it into the chat. If you want to turn on your mic, you can. Hey,
Hi.
Tara.
I'm Tara. I am from Honolulu, Hawaii, and I like to go to the beach and go hiking, anything outdoorsy, and surfing, anything like that. I don't really have any questions though. So, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Leilani, are you there? Would you like to jump in? Share your. Hey.
Hi. I'm Leilani. I'm from Big Island, Hawaii. What was it? I don't have any questions at the moment right now, but my favorite summer activity is probably hanging out with my dogs or going running or going to the beach.
I love this, man. I'm so excited for summer now. Like also taking less of like hiking, swimming. Get out and do that, Maddie. Yeah. Okay, I think we have Angelina. Did you want to share anything?
Yes, we have it in chat. So Angelina is from Fairview, Oregon. Also having a question about work study. Is there important stuff or what we should bring? And we're actually going to touch up on all of that. And your favorite summer activity is sleeping. Yes. After everything that's happened, sleep is probably on top of everyone's list that nobody talked about because, you know, Angelina's a brave one to put it on there. I love that. Awesome. And I think we maybe have one more here.
Yes, Donnell, did you want to share anything?
Sure. I am a transfer student actually, and I didn't hear what the questions were, but I enjoy hiking as well and hanging out with my dogs too. So
awesome.
Yay!
Welcome. Yay.
Welcome. Yay. We're
Awesome.
gonna jump in. Go ahead, Gina.
Yeah, I think that was everybody. I just want to we got everybody on here. I'm gonna put our visit coordinator on the spot because Miss Sarah Agut is also a transfer student at Pacific, was a transfer student at Pacific, and was from Hawaii. Hi, Sarah.
You're like talking
About
slowly.
yourself?
You're like, she's slowly coming on here real quick. Did you want me to introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Okay. My name is Sarah Agut, and I graduated from Pacific in 2017. I was a transfer student from Portland Community College, and I was a first generation student as well. My favorite summer activity, I'm trying to find that because I got really obsessed with snowboarding, and now I've just been depressed because you can't snowboard that much in the summer unless you want to just grind on the ice. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to figure out a new fun sport to do. But yeah, if you folks, I know that we have at least one transfer student in here. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to answer that for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And sorry for putting you on the spot. I like to do that all the time too.
All right, I'm hiding.
Bye. All right. So I just wanted to kind of quickly go over all the things that we're going to talk about today. And Rudy, Maddie, and I are just going to take turns kind of presenting and sharing this information. And it is a lot of information. So again, we are recording this starting from my awkward start time. And so you guys can always go back and listen to it again and kind of stop and pause and kind of look back on it. And then we're also going to have a second session coming up. And the second session is actually going to be about a month later after all the advising has happened. And it's just to kind of check in with you guys to see how you guys did. And there's probably going to be some new questions that pop up closer to move-in date. So we do have a second session. And we're actually excited because we're going to get you guys connected with a club on campus. It's the First Gen Club. So there's literally a club to help you guys kind of connect with other students and kind of navigate the next 4 years or next 2 years, however long is kind of left in your time at Pacific. So there's so many resources that we want to get out to you guys so that way you guys can be successful and you don't go through the same experience that Maddie, Rudy, and I went through when you're just not sure what the heck is going on. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about today is finding contact information and kind of how to do that and like learning about the different resources that we have and what those resources are because you hear it all the time. And we're going to talk a little bit about your PUNet ID and what that exactly is, what your email exactly is going to mean for you when you're a student here. We'll also talk about financial aid letters and kind of what happens with the billing process and how all of that works. And I know that's kind of been a big question mark. We'll go through FAFSA and work study. We'll also go through some of the documents that you need to bring and what those documents are going to be. Then we're going to talk about FERPA. It's a big kind of 5-letter word that you're going to hear, and we'll talk about what those mean. And we're also going to
go through reaching out to professors and office hours and choosing classes. We're going to talk about advising. I can see already we've had some questions about how to choose your classes. And so Maddie's actually going to walk through what that's going to look like for you guys. So you're not kind of trying to do things on your own. And then I'm going to kind of finish off with upcoming summer things, documentation that you should be bringing with you, what move-in and orientation is going to look like. And then we're going to hand it off to you guys for any other Q&A that you guys have throughout the session. So while we are talking, feel free to continue adding those questions into the chat box. I think it's really important that everybody also sees your questions too. So again, if you feel uncomfortable with your name there, go ahead and feel free to change it. But it's good to kind of see, because the thing that always pops up for me is you don't know what you don't know, so you don't know what questions to ask. And so it's good to see what other people are asking so you get that information, because it might not have been something that was in your radar initially. So without further ado, Maddie, let's hand it off to you and we'll get started.
Yay. Okay. And I noticed you guys are already doing questions in the chat. So it's perfect. That's what we want, is that you guys help one another. So we'll try to sprinkle in the questions that you guys had at the beginning as we move through. So my first one is contact information, because you already know us and you can continue to email us anytime you'd like. And you also are kind of in this transition period where you now have your Pacific email, which we'll talk about. And that's really going to be kind of your ticket into accessing address books of the rest of campus, whether it's a professor, another student that you have to do a group project with. But what I wanted to show you guys is actually just how to navigate the website. Just like a little bit of, okay, Maddie, if I need to talk to someone about getting tutoring, or if I needed to talk to someone about, my advising appointment, how do I find that information? So I'm going to share my screen with you guys to give you just kind of a rundown, because I know that as first-gen students, we're pretty scrappy when it comes to being able to find information that we need. I find that a really amazing characteristic. And so when it comes to navigating our website, this is going to be one of the biggest resources that's available to you. So get a little bit comfortable with it. It's not the best website, I'm not going to lie, but it is going to be full of a lot of different things that you'll want. So you guys probably know the admissions tab up here, and do know that some of these tabs are going to be hidden if you're using your cell phone, so it's going to look a little different. So you're probably familiar with this page, undergrad admissions, going in here, planning your visit, etc. Well, now you're going to be utilizing academics tab, Life at Pacific tab, and the My Pacific link up here. So if you go all the way up, top right hand corner, you hit My Pacific. This is where you log in. So you're going to use that P unit ID. You're going to be able to log in there, and that's going to give you access to a lot of the online tools. So some of those online tools, let me show you what they are. I'm clicking down here. Online tools will include a lot of different things. So this list might be overwhelming, but the things you want to notice on here are Moodle. This is where a lot of your online classes are going to be. We'll go into Moodle at this next session that we have, because that's when you're really going to want to know how to use some of those skills. And then you're also going to have your Boxer mail. So this is where you have your Pacific email. So this is one way to click right into it to log in. And then you're also going to have access to Zoom. Now as students, you can set up Zoom meetings with other students. To be honest, I use it with my family and my friends. So you'll not have access to that. You also have access to your account. Sorry. And so this is a really important area, these online tools. But let's say you wanted to find out about getting tutoring on campus. One thing you can do is just type right up in the search bar. I know this is super lame, but I want to show you guys all of the different options that'll come up. So just in typing in tutoring, you can see that Pacific has a lot of different articles that will come up. But if you scroll through, you can find that there's some landing pages. So landing pages are basically where you can get like your general info, right? So underneath the umbrella of Center for Learning and Success, Student Success, shortened for CLASS. You're going to see that on campus. I highly recommend, as students navigating your first year, to try to go to a free tutoring session. It is free, which means you really honestly don't have to pay for it. And if you think about it, you're kind of already paying for it. So I talked about being in chemistry and failing chemistry. I needed to have a tutor. And so this is one thing that I highly recommend that you do, is you take advantage of some of the tutoring. One option that's going to be coming up this semester is online tutoring. So this can be done from your dorm room. So really some accessible options there. Let's say you wanted to join clubs at Pacific. How do I get involved? If you go to Life at Pacific, you're going to see on the left-hand side, housing and dining, which I'm sure some of you have been utilizing these web pages. But then you're also going to have sports if you want to get involved in intramurals. You're going to have clubs and organizations. So let's say, okay, I wanted to be part of the drama club. You'll see president and advisor. President is always going to be student. Advisor is always going to be the faculty or staff. So we're considered staff. Faculty are those who teach your classes, so professors. And the advisor is going to be usually a faculty or staff. So you can feel free to email. You can email Brennan. You can email Ellen. Hey, when does your club meet? So part of it is going to be navigating, this website to get, people's contact information to ask them questions. I know that several of you email me your questions all the time. Definitely continue to do that while you're in college. Gina, Rudy, would you add anything to navigating the website?
I would also, since we're on the page for clubs, if you do start your own club, you are absolutely more than welcome to. I think you just need a few signatures to show student interest. And you do need an advisor to be kind of overseeing your club. And so the advisor, for example, for Hawaii Club is Auntie Jana Lei. She's the Hawaii Club advisor. I'm the advisor for Korean Club, and you can kind of see the contact information in there. So you, as long as you can find one other staff or faculty member to be a part of kind of the overseeing person to sign off on a couple things, they will be a part of the club as hands-off as possible or as involved as possible. So you have the option, if there is a club that you would like to start and you don't see, you absolutely can. It's super easy. You just need to show interest and find an advisor who would sign off on it. The Korean Club that I advise, they pretty much don't want anything to do with me. And so I'm just kind of there to sign off on a couple of things. They'll ask me for rides to the Korean market, which I'm totally okay with. And that's about all I see of them. Whereas Hawaii Club, Auntie Jana does a lot and is super involved. And so really up to you guys how you want to kind of use those resources.
Yeah, one thing to add, the number that you need for the club is 7. And then what you do is you find your advisor and you present your idea to the student government, and if they approve your club, and they usually do, they give you money to run your club, and you can use that money however you want, to make t-shirts, to run a drive,
pizza,
places. Yeah, I mean, I know people who did that, and their clubs are still at Pacific. So I mean, it's just it's a literal way to show I was here and I made a difference, and it's incredible to see, because I can point at certain clubs and say I went to school with the person who created this.
And as you guys reach out to, these club leaders and things, know that Pacific we're always going to try to connect you with whoever your question might be relevant for. So even if you're not sure if this is the right person to contact for X, Y, and Z, still send it over, because they're most likely going to help you find someone who can answer that question. Yeah. And for clubs and organizations, they are planning to have some way for you guys to interact with those clubs and organizations, whether it's, some really curated opportunities in person or online. So I know last week we had the Center for Civic Engagement online chatting with some families, and they're already looking for creative and different ways to connect with you guys and get you opportunities. So the website is going to be really big. I'd say kind of cruise around with it, get comfortable with where to find things, because a lot of stuff is going to be you kind of reaching out, right? Getting the information you need. But remember, those conversations can start, and then more information can come from that. So hopefully that gives you some idea of how to navigate the website. And we'll talk a little bit more about, reaching out to professors and such in a little bit.
All right, and the next thing on our list is talking about your PUNet, student IDs, all of that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it. You hear PUNet ID a lot. PUNet stands for Pacific University Network ID. So this is going to be your student ID, and essentially one thing that pops up for a lot of the new incoming students is your email address is at pacificu.edu. That U gets left out. That will be sent to University of the Pacific out in Stockton, California. We are not affiliated with the University of the Pacific. People confuse us all the time. We've had a student come to campus on a move-in date. Thankfully, she applied to both Pacific University and University of the Pacific. She went ahead and deposited to the wrong school. She meant to come here. She got the move-in information, showed up, and thankfully we were able to scramble with all the other departments and get her registered, get housing set for her. But it was definitely a traumatizing experience for the young lady because when it was the wrong state. And so it happens a lot. So our university is at pacificu.edu. Our website is also pacificu.edu. If you do pacific.edu, that'll take you to a whole other website and another state. So that is something that we always have to remind students that we are Pacific University. So typically your student ID will have all of that information. Your PUNet ID is always going to be the first 4 letters of your last name, and then you're going to get 4 random letters assigned to it. So I have mine too. Yay. There you go.
Oh, look at my photo.
Yeah. Oh, your photo's fine. So you can see Maddie's and mine there, and you see the ID number. It's going to be 7 random numbers, but the last 4 numbers is actually going to be a part of your PUNet ID. I don't know if you can see it. I think nope. I'll just turn off my background. You guys can see my dirty house.
But Angelina did have a question of how does one get one of these?
Yes, and so I'm gonna just go hop into that. So that's what it is. And so you can see my PUNet ID is Lee. I only have 3 letters of my last name, 2695, and you can see on my ID is 0482695. So that's gonna be your ID number. It's gonna be a little bit easier to remember because again, it's gonna be your last name and then the 4 random numbers that are assigned to you. So your PUNet ID is also your email address. So my email address is lee2695 at pacificu.edu. If you want to change it so it doesn't say the last name and the 4 numbers, like for example, my email, I tell everybody it's Lee at pacificu.edu because it's Gina Lee, so I was able to change it, but at the heart of it, it's still Lee2695. You can actually just change it. It's kind of like having like a cover up where you have an
alias.
Yeah, like an alias. It still gets sent to your Lee. So you can change that by going into my account and that My Pacific that Maddie showed you. So you can hop in there and change your email alias whenever you want to, and that's up to you to change. But when and how do you get your Pacific ID? So this is what's changing this year. And I don't think they have a final process as to what is going to happen. Typically, it used to be that we'd have advising and registration on campus, and we'd take everyone's picture. We wouldn't tell them. We'd be like, hey, surprise, I know you just got out of bed. We're taking your student ID photo. People hated us for that. But that's what we used to do. We used to have it on campus where we'd take your photo, and then we'd have Hawaii registration in Hawaii, and we'd take their photo there. And then those students who did remote advising and registration, they'd come onto campus on the day of move-in date and go to CPS and get their picture taken. My understanding from what I heard from Ryan, he's at the CPS, I think they said that they're going to do everything in person when students move in, only because doing it online, there's like a specific specification of your head size and all of that. So we don't know for sure how that's going to look like. The biggest change is that check-in and move-in, it used to be that, okay, it's everybody can start at 8 o'clock, you check in whenever you want, and then everybody has to be done by 1 o'clock. That used to kind of be the frame. And within that time frame, you had time to stop by CPS to get your photo ID and stuff. Check-in and move-in, Nate, we're going to go into more detail at the end there, but it's actually going to be by time slot. So I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit easier for CPS to be able to do that. But you will make sure to get your student ID. It's one of the first things that you do when you get to campus. This will also be your card access to your food on campus. So this is what your meal plan is going to look like. If you are in the dorm room, essentially this will also get you into your residence halls. There's a keypad outside. All the dorm rooms are going to be locked. This fall, I know some of you guys were on campus and you were able to visit, tour and stuff. We're not opening any of our buildings to outside visitors. They're gonna stand outside. They get to see a nice video clip of the indoors that we took over the summer. And so we're not gonna have any outside visitors within the campus. And so all the doors are going to be locked. Your student ID is what's gonna get you access into the building. So this is kind of one that everybody holds on to. I think the first one, it's like $5 for a replacement, and after that, it's like $10 for a replacement. So try not to lose it because that's still money. But this will work does it work at Starbucks? Does anybody know? Rudy, do you know if
Yes. No, it does not.
Oh, it does not work at Starbucks. I get a yes and a no. Let's go with no just in case. And if it does, great. If not, then you know it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just with dining services, we had a recent change in dining services. And so I know the past year we weren't able to utilize that there. But yeah, for now, maybe no, but I know that they're working really hard on trying to get that up and going.
Perfect. So for right now, it's going to be used in the Grove Market, which is kind of like a convenience store on campus. So you'll have DB or Boxer Bucks. They're used interchangeably. It's kind of like a debit card where you'll have specific dollar amounts on here. And you can just use this at the student Grove. And then for the actual meals, you'll just swipe. And then it's, right now, I think this fall it's going to be grab and go, where it's going to be contained food. Before it used to be buffet style, but obviously with the pandemic happening, we want to ensure that everything is handled safely. So rather than having it all out there, they're going to have it prepackaged for you guys. So we'll just swipe this. This is going to be your key to the buildings and foods. That's going to be how meal plans work. And then we want to kind of shift gears into a little bit. I know we have some questions about move-in, so we'll go into details about that in a little bit. Financial aid letters and payment plans and what happens with non-payment, entrance counseling, verification, all of the not so fun stuff that is absolutely necessary. Again, this is the component that I didn't understand until I started working at Pacific. And so this is something that we wanted to bring up. So your financial aid letter, it's gonna change every year because of your income. It is something that you do have to, so you've all filled out the FAFSA. You have to fill out the FAFSA and update that every year. Typically, there isn't a large change if if your parents are still in the same career or job or business. There shouldn't be a huge fluctuation. If there is a drastic change in income, that's when the financial aid is going to change a little bit. Your merit scholarships, all those scholarships that you receive, that's yours to keep. It's just the other components that have to do with financial aid that is income-based or need-based, that might slightly change year to year because it is something that you have to update every year. The great thing is, though, it's not going to change or it's not going to be like a whole new application you have to start. It's actually going to already save the information that you already input. You're just going to go back and update a couple of things, and it takes closer to about, I want to say about 20 minutes than the first time being like a year and a half. And we also want to talk about payment plans and how that works. And there are a couple of kind of unfortunate things that happen to some students, and I wanted to bring up so that you guys are aware of what happens.
So payment plans are going to come into place, I believe, the first bill that is due, usually August 15th, which is just before move-in date. August 15th is the first day that you have to pay. I checked yesterday, and I don't think the billing website is up to date yet. It's still under the 2019 dates. But if you go into the search bar and look for payment, it will actually go ahead and give you the information on how to make payments. The payment can be done monthly, and it's going to be per academic school year. So it's actually going to, monthly payment is not over a 12-month period. It's over an 8-month period. That's because it's 4 months and 4 months. And so that's one confusion. You can pay it monthly, or you can pay it by semester. You have an option to do that. So you'll have some chances to do that. The one thing that we do, and this is something that I've had to deal with, that's kind of heartbreaking, is that you have to make sure that you are on top of paying your bills. Your bills at Pacific is the same as kind of like doing a car payment. Once you start defaulting on your payment, that car no longer is yours. The company starts possessing it. And so for Pacific, it's going to be your transcript, and it's going to be your ability to register for classes. So for example, I had a student, they came to Pacific, and after the first semester, they kind of were having a hard time with payment, and they didn't say anything. And so they didn't really pay for their second semester. And what happened was the student was unable to register for classes for the second year because she had defaulted on payment. And her thought was, okay, fine, I'm just going to transfer out. I'm just going to go to a different school that's closer to home, and it's going to be cheaper. Here's the thing. In order for you to transfer, you need to have your transcripts available. Your transcripts will not be released until your bills are paid. And so you can kind of see where it makes it a little bit awkward and a little bit harder for you to just transfer out. It's not going to be as easy as, oh, forget it, I'm just going to start over. There's actually a National Clearinghouse website where every student who's taken a class or any type of university class, the schools actually report it to the National Clearinghouse. So your record is your record. You can't kind of get rid of it. It's the same thing as kind of like your criminal record. Hopefully you don't have one, because you shouldn't. But it doesn't just go away because you move states. It kind of sticks with you. And that's kind of what happens with the university transcripts. So it's really important that you don't make the default, you don't default on payments, that you pay on time. You can do monthly pay, but it's going to be over an 8-month period. That's the academic school year. So you divide by 8, not by 12. And I know that usually changes the minimum amount by significantly. And so that is something that we want you guys to be aware of. The great thing is we're actually going to have financial aid sessions for you guys coming up. And this financial aid session is going to be for both parent and student. I think is really important if you can have your parent there with you. But we will record the video sessions, and that's something that I'm working on right now. So they will be able to view it later, but we will have financial aid sessions specifically for students who have deposited. So that's going to be coming up in the month of July for you guys. So don't worry if you're not getting all this information right now. I just want you to understand that it is important to stay on top of your payments. When you log in on your PUNet, you should also be able to see whether you need verification. You will get flagged for verification. And when you hear this, a lot of people freak out. Here's the thing, it's absolutely random. We have no idea how they pick students for verification. It just means you just need to fill out additional documents to send in to show proof of income, and that's it. Literally about 30% of all students who are applying at universities or colleges in the FAFSA will be flagged for verification. It is absolutely random. There is no rhyme or reason. So don't let that scare you, because I know that scares a lot of families every year. Rudy, I'm actually going to hand it off to you. And I'm actually going to ask you to talk a little bit more about the entrance counseling, because I actually don't have a lot of experience with that, but I know you working with College Possible have a little bit more. So can you go and talk about FAFSA and work study and entrance counseling, please?
Yeah, of course. So with entrance counseling, that is a process that starts this summer for you guys. So so those of you who filled out your FAFSA, the same entity that asked you to fill it out is going to email you and say, okay, it is time for you to do your insurance counseling. They'll give you a link to the FAFSA website, and they will show you step-by-step instructions on how to do it, as well as have some video options. You'll be quizzed a couple times, so they'll ask you a few questions after each presentation to make sure that you retain the information. It's basically saying, the gist of it is this: you filed for financial aid, you said you were okay with receiving loans in your financial aid, you are receiving this amount in loans, and you do not have to start paying them back until after you graduate. And so they'll go into more detail about each kind of loan that you got and what that looks like. But they just want to make sure that you have that information so that when you do graduate 4 years later, you're going to do your exit counseling, which is a reminder of what you got told in entrance counseling. You took out loans. This is how much. This is when you need to start repaying them back. And you can definitely reach out to our financial aid department, and they'll be more than happy to answer any specific questions you have about that. But yeah, and like Gina said, you do need to fill out the FAFSA each year, and it does. And I promise you guys, it gets easier every year. Okay, it does. And ooh, good question about insurance counseling for Parent Plus loans. I am not as familiar with Parent Plus loans. I did not have to take one when I was at Pacific. Gina, Maddie, do either of you have any experience with that?
I do know I've had a parents tell me that they had to do entrance counseling, which tells me that there might be some form of counseling for parents. The great thing is, though, that if you're ever unsure, your financial aid advisor, they're your advisor for the next 4 years. And so they're not done after, us admissions, we're kind of done with you guys now. You guys are kind of off our hands. You're done, you're been admitted. And so we're kind of just here to kind of help you guys along, but officially our job as an admissions counselor, which is to get you admitted and applied to Pacific, is kind of off. And we don't really have any other connections with you guys afterwards when you guys are on campus. But financial aid is going to be your financial aid advisor for the next 4 years. So you still have Cassie or Stacy England, depending on what your last name is, as your financial aid advisor. And their office is also open for walk-ins. It's in the front floor of Marsh Hall in the lobby. When you walk up in that Hogwarts-looking building, actually, that was my background. I'm going to pull up my background again because my walls look a little bare. I just moved, you guys, like last week, and so my house doesn't feel like a house yet. There it is. So that's Marsh Hall. And if you just walk through those front doors, that's exactly where that financial aid office is. That's also where the business office is and the registrar's office is. So financial aid, you can reach out to them. They're available via email right now, and they're very, very quick in getting back. I think everybody is just sitting in front of a computer. So I'm not quite sure for Parent Plus loans that there's a separate entrance counseling, but they will help kind of guide you guys through those next steps.
Thank you, Gina.
Rudy, can you also talk a little bit about the scholarship and loans that gets added to the billing?
Yeah. So if you guys apply for outside scholarships, and then also when you finish your loan counseling, that's when the loans will start to go towards your student account. And that's partially one of the reasons why you don't get your, that's why the first bill isn't due until August 15th. They need time to get everything into your file to make sure that your financial aid, the amount of money that you and your family owe is accurate. And so that is, so if you have outside scholarships, you can contact financial aid and they will send you the form that you need to send to Pacific to say, okay, I won this scholarship, this is for how much. And then the scholarship itself will ask, sometimes they'll send a check directly to Pacific. The form is just to let them know to expect that in the mail. And then with loans, entrance counseling is a huge part of that. And we will get notified Pacific will get notified that you've completed your entrance counseling. And so that's, again, where financial aid comes in, and they are more than happy to help you out with that. And you can also contact them and say, hey, have my loans come through? And they can tell you that. Kind of on a related piece, work study. I was a work study student at Pacific for 3 years. My sophomore year, I graded papers for our math department. And then my junior and senior year, I worked at the library. I love to read, so it was a match made in heaven. Loved it. Definitely recommend it as a work study post. And the way it works is, so you don't get that amount of financial aid through work study immediately. You do have to work and earn that money. And usually during the first week of you guys being on campus, we have the job fair, where you guys are able to walk around and see all the departments that are hiring. Almost every department on campus does hire work study students. And so you just hand out copies of your resume, try to set up some interviews. And then once you do get a position, you will use this packet that you get when you move in that pertains to work study. The employer will fill it out and they will tell you where you need to go next. So we will tell you each step of the way where you need to go and what to do. You will need a couple of forms of ID to get that work study approved. So a form of ID can be your license, it can be your birth certificate, and you also need to know your social security number. If you haven't memorized it yet, I recommend bringing it. And then another great form of ID is U.S. passport. But yeah, those are the main things that you'll need, and to be able to show that you are who you say you are, and to get those funds approved. And you get paid, I believe, bi-weekly through work study, bi-weekly or monthly.
Bi-monthly.
Yes. Thank you, Gina. And you can get a paper check, or you can have your money set up through direct deposit to a bank account. And that money is for you to use however you want. You can have it go directly towards your tuition, and there's a form that we can help you fill out, that financial aid can help you fill out for that. Or you can use it for stuff like buying shampoo or going to the movies with your friends. How you use the money is completely up to you.
It's just think of it like any other kind of job that you're getting. For you guys, I know there's a specific dollar amount. So what does it mean if your work study package and you have $2,500? That just means that's the maximum amount of dollars that you can make off of work study. And so it's just kind of like you're kind of chipping away from it. But you can still get another job off campus if you want as well. That's totally up to you. You can have more than one work study job, but if you do, the maximum that you can work is up to whatever, like 3,000 or whatever was written on your financial aid package. After that, if the departments, typically for you guys, there's no change. It's the difference for us is the budget. So work study money, that comes from the federal government. Non-work study money just comes from the department's budget. So some departments don't have the budget to be able to help pay for the non-work studies, so they only allow work studies. And so for you, it might be that, okay, you can no longer work because you maxed out on that, but you can still have a job off campus if you want to. So it sounds kind of confusing. It's just any other kind of job, part-time job that you would have, it's just on campus and there's a specific maximum amount that you can do. So that's kind of the biggest difference. Again, with the pieces of documentation, they can't be copies. That is something that we want you guys to know. It cannot be a copy of your birth certificate. It can't be a copy of your social security. It needs to be the original form of ID. Your license and 2 forms of student ID. You either need your U.S. passport or 2 forms of government issued ID. You don't need to have all 3 because it actually, to get your passport, you need 2 forms of government ID. And so they'll use that one passport and take that. If you don't have a passport, then that's when you'll need either your license and a birth certificate, or your license and a social security card. And they cannot be copies. So make sure to bring the originals with you to campus. And this is going to be the same for any job that you have off campus as well too. And the great thing is minimum wage in the fall at Portland and Forest Grove is going to be $13.25, I believe. So you're going to get paid the minimum wage that Metropolitan Portland gets paid, even though we're out in Forest Grove. So that's kind of nice. Thanks, Rudy.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing on work study. The great thing about it is that they prioritize academics first. So if you have a shift, but you need to study for a midterm, you just need to let your boss know. And usually they'll say, okay, we'll get somebody else to cover for you. Because we really do want academics to come first at Pacific, and work study employers understand that. They all work at the school and they want to make sure that you are doing in your classes first. And so they'll cover your shift with somebody else, and then you can cover somebody else's shift as a makeup. They're really accommodated in that way to make sure that you are really able to balance school, work, and everything else that you're involved with.
Awesome. And we're going to take a quick break for questions. I know there's been a lot of questions here. I know a lot of this information has been kind of dry, but it is necessary, so we do apologize. It's a lot of information. You can share if you need to. So we're actually going to just go ahead and answer some of these questions that popped up here, and then feel free to go ahead and off your mic or turn on your mic and jump in with any questions, and we'll go ahead and answer that. So I think one of the questions that came in initially was about advising. So we're going to kind of skip that part only because advising is coming up in our next session, or the next kind of point in our itinerary. So we'll talk about advising in just a little bit. The meal plans and kind of how that works is there are 4 meal plans. They all cost the same. I believe incoming freshman students are automatically assigned meal plans. I think they're using letters this year or numbers. I don't know. They always change it. So it's a third one, or meal plan C or D.
That's right.
Means it's while the dollar amount is the same, 75% of your meal plan is going to be meal points, and the other 25 is going to be declining balance, so actual dollar amount that you would use at the Grove Market. The difference between the 4 or 5 different meal plans that we have is just the ratio of it. Thank you, Maddie. Awesome. So it looks like we're using numbers this year. Yay. So typically, I believe plan 3 is what students are offered automatically. But you have about 3 days after you move in to go in and change it if you want to. Most of our freshman students, because while you have access to a full kitchen, you might not have it to yourself. And so there's a little bit less cooking involved than some of our students who are in the apartment style housing. And so those meal plans is kind of reflected to show that it's the best kind of meal plan for our freshmen who are living in like a traditional dorm room, but you can go in there and change the ratio of meal plans there. So thanks for that, Maddie. And then the next question we have about move-in, I'll go over that towards the end of the session as well. Angelina had a question about dorm rooms. Maddie, do you want to maybe add a little bit about dorm rooms, how they're assigned?
Yes. So I know housing has been reaching out to you all via your Pacific email. Sometimes we kind of bug you guys about housing because they need info from you. So make sure you're checking that Pacific email. If you've already gone through the process of finding a roommate, talking with someone, getting assigned, picking each other and then filling out the roommate code, then you know that you are going to be rooming with them. If you haven't gone through that process, just know that the housing department's going to pair you with some students. Now, the way that you find out what actual dorm, so the actual building you're going to be living in and what room you're going to be living in, is it will actually show up on your bill in July. So probably in the next few weeks when that bill lands on your front doorstep, so they're actually going to mail it to you. July 25th or 27th, Gina?
One of those dates. I think it's might be the 27th. That sounds more correct because that's a Monday, but I think that's behind your dorm assignments. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So that's where you'll get your actual building, which one you're going to be living in, and more roommate information will come from the housing department specifically, especially if you were choosing to be randomly assigned or you didn't end up picking a roommate. So you can anticipate that in the next month, which is exciting.
Awesome. And yes, you do need both ID and birth certificate. And again, it can't be copies. It needs to be the original. So make sure to have the original birth certificate. I know a lot of parents feel uncomfortable because it is such an important document, but as an adult, that is something that you now have to be responsible for. Birth certificates, I think, are a little bit harder to come by if you do lose it. So I might recommend a social security card because they're a little bit easier to hold on to in your wall. Maybe not carry around your social security ID, but I think it's a little bit more easily replaced than your birth certificate. Talk to your parents about it. I know my parents had a really hard time looking for a birth certificate at all, so I only had social security. But if you have your passport, you don't need your birth certificate or your social security because that'll count as 2 forms of ID. So yeah, great question. Any other questions? Go ahead. You can chat it in the chat box or turn on your mic, and then we can move on after that. Any questions?
Yeah, we did have the questions that came up when they introduced themselves. So we talked about, yes, because one I did want to go back to, bringing things to the dorms. We're going to talk about that in August. So come to the one in August. You'll also get a list of things that you should and should not bring to the dorms. But you can also email us individually if, like, I had a student ask if they could bring a small miniature waffle iron to their dorm. The answer is yes, you can. So if you have a mini waffle iron. But the one that I wanted to go back to, which I think was, and maybe it was your question, but how to explain college to your parents. And so I did want to touch on that really quick because that is definitely a question that probably all of us will be navigating a little bit differently. Some parents were not involved in the process. I know my parents were not. And so one thing that I would say as far as trying to describe to your parents is talking to them about your schedule. So when you get it, you get to choose it. Your parents are not going to be telling you what classes to pick and in what way. You're going to be able to pick your own classes. So once you get that class schedule, and if you're living on campus, it's probably a good idea to talk to them about, okay, do you expect me to come home for dinner? Am I going to be expected home each night? So I lived at home when I was in my first year of college, and I did not have a curfew. So there were some conversations that my mom and I had to have of like, hey, where have you been? You know, how late are you going to stay out? And so we made a compromise between her and I that I would, you know, text her if I was going to not be coming home that night, or if I was going to be coming home late, I would make sure to send her a text saying that I've come in. And so there's conversations, they might be awkward. If you and your parents are going to be involved together in the paying of the bill, I did want to give you guys some advice based off of my experience. I wasn't able to register for classes probably 3 or 4 semesters because my parents weren't able to get me the money to pay the bill. So I missed out on classes. So if any of you are going to be working with your parents to make a payment each month, give your parents a false deadline. Make sure that it's a week to 2 weeks before that payment is due, so that when they go, oh, what? Maddie, you need the money right now? Like, I don't have that. You are able to have a 1 to 2 week window where they can get it together. You can make your payments, and then you're still able to register for classes. Okay, so if you're making monthly payments. So that's the one piece of advice I would give you. But Gina, Rudy, any advice on how to talk to parents about this college thing?
My parents with zero involvement all throughout my college, except for the bill, and it was kind of like, here's the bill. I think what you said was great. Have a false deadline, so they know, and they have some time to come up with the money when they need to. And the same thing was, happening with my parents. They just didn't have the money on the spot, and so it was good to let them know ahead of time. Once the payment plan and all of that information is updated on the website, it might also be good to just print it out and have it like on the fridge for them, so they can kind of look at it, or mark it on a calendar for them before you leave, so they have that information, whichever way they kind of are able to kind of track, help them with that. And then that way
they'll have that information ahead of time.
One thing that helped with me was my first year is I actually talked to my parents a lot, and they really appreciated that, especially my dad. I did start to wean them off that after my freshman year. You know, I did it gradually because I knew this was a change. I mean, I was their oldest kid. They had no idea what the process looked like. So understand that this is new for them too. And, you know, there is going to have to be some compromise and some give and take there. But I mean, I knew that I felt innately that it was something that they needed. They needed to hear from me. They needed to know that I was okay. And so I did that. And then, you know, when I did come back, we talked, I would kind of fill them in on what it was like and everything. And you know, they may not have understood, but they could also say, okay, Rudy's struggling with this too. It's new. And so it does help to, you know, it kind of did help with that. And then with each year, we didn't need to talk as often. I still called them, I still reached out, but it wasn't an everyday thing like it was my first year. And so like talking about what they would like to hear, and then maybe what you're able to do, and then trying to meet somewhere in the middle is something I definitely recommend.
Awesome. And we are just going to try and fly through the rest of this. I know it's kind of been a little bit of a longer session, but there are some information that we wanted to give to you guys before registration happened. And so I think we can kind of just fly through the steps, and then at least we'll cover what we need to, and then the rest of the time we'll open up for questions. So Caitlin, I'll answer your questions once we get into orientation, but Maddie, can you talk very quickly and Rudy very quickly about office hours, advising, and registration, and how that looks like?
Yes, so I will start with advising. So if you do not have your advising appointment set up, continue to use that Pacific email and email advisingcenter@pacificu.edu. I know a lot of you have been already emailing with them. So if you have your advising appointment set up, the way to prepare for that is cruising through the website so you can actually see the chemistry classes that are listed for chemistry. Keep in mind that as an incoming freshman, for the majority of you, it's probably going to be 100 level to 200 level courses. So the amount of credits increase and the rigor of the course increases with the higher the level. So 400, 500 level classes, that's for like juniors and seniors. They have really awesome course descriptions and they're really interesting and you're going to want to take it, but those courses are going to be reserved for upperclassmen, and you'll get to that point. So you're going to want to make sure that when you're looking at your schedule, and they're going to go over all of this with you, that you get at least 12 semester credits. That is full time. So that's going to be 3 to 4 classes, 15 credits to 18 credits. You pay for 18 credits. So whether you sign up for 12 or you sign up for 18, you're still paying for 18 credits.
Did Maddie face on you guys too? Is it just
and Rudy? I just
Maddie, can you do that one more time? Sorry, you kind of froze.
Okay, so which part? Okay, so the
that I'm blanking right now as well.
Okay, so you need to sign up in your advising session for 12 semester credits.
That's what it was. Yeah.
That's full time. So that's where you get to use all your aid. That's where you get to continue to be a full-time student. So I recommend taking 12 to 15 credits that first semester, but you're paying for 18. So some students really want to take up to 18 credits. That will be quite a few classes. That'll probably be more like 5 to 6 classes. So that's a lot your first year. Most students will do that when they're upwards of sophomore, junior. So sign up for 12, and they're going to go over all of this with you in your appointment. Make sure you get 12, maybe 15, but know that you're paying for 18, okay? So you're probably going to want to take 100 to 200 level coursework. Unless you're bringing in some credits already, then you can get into those 300 level courses. But you'll get there at sophomore year. But your advisors will go over all of it with you, but just know that you're going to want to take at least 12 semester credits. That's full time. Mhm.
Awesome. Advising and registration, I just wanted to clarify. I know you hear one or the other together a lot and what that means. Advising is that you do meet with an advisor who is a professor of a specific area that you said you're interested in studying. Everybody should have filled out an AIS, which is your academic interest survey. So if you said that you're interested in psychology, your advisor or the professor will be a professor from the psychology department. They might not be the same advisor that you have for the next 4 years, because let's face it, someone's going to change their major at one point all the time. And so your advisor will change. But the first appointment that you have, you're not going to be doing it on your own. So you meet with your advisor. They're going to help you choose your classes. So they're going to go through kind of what the typical classes a freshman student is going to sign up for, and then specific classes to help you get into psychology. So you can kind of get like your first dip into the psychology classes. And then you're going to take that framework of outline of classes, and then you're going to go to the registration appointment, which is with the advising center. I know that's kind of confusing, but then they're going to help you officially register for classes. So you should have your fall schedule by the end of July. But you do have 2 different people that you'll be meeting with before you register for it. So you're not on your own trying to figure out what classes you need to take. They're actually going to tell you what classes you need to take and will help you. Advising will also have your final high school transcript at that point. Any classes that you've taken at community college, they'll also have those transcripts in as well. So they'll be able to know what classes are already covered for you. And any AP testing or IB testing that you did that does work out for credits, they'll have all of that information. So your registration and your advising appointment is specifically for you. It's not going to be kind of like an all class seminar that all freshmen get. It's very tailored to what it is that you need and what classes that you need to take. So I know that can be kind of confusing, and it can be a little bit scary to hear that you're going to be in a meeting with a professor one-on-one and you can't really hide. I would have been terrified, but the professors are amazing. And a lot of these professors who are doing advising have done advising for incoming freshmen for a number of years. And so they kind of already know that you might be a little bit nervous, and so they're going to kind of help you through that process. So don't worry about not knowing what classes you need to take. You will have an advisor and the registration office help you with that. I think we're going to just kind of move forward ahead to move-in dates and orientation and kind of have that be our last piece. We're kind of running out of time. We do want to open up some time for you guys to ask Q&A as well and go over what that next session is going to look like. So thank you so much for bearing with us. I know it's kind of been a long session. Hopefully it's been helpful so far. And the questions about orientation and move-in and how that's going to look like. So again, this year is going to look a little bit different. There was an email that was just sent out earlier, a couple hours ago, kind of going overview of what the fall is going to look like. Have you guys been in any of our Lunch with the Boxer series by chance? Has anyone been able to tune in or look at some of the videos that we've had before? Okay, it seems pretty quiet. On Thursdays, every Thursday at noon, except this Thursday, we're off this Thursday because it's July 4th weekend. Every Thursday, we have somebody from a different department essentially come and do a presentation, and then it's a Q&A, and we've already had athletics come in. We've actually had Denise Giesbers from orientation come in and give updates. Super, super important. We highly recommend going back and watching these videos or having your parent watch this. This is great because they're not going to be at a specific time. Like for me, if I had to make any type of appointment with my parents, it would have to be like after 9 p.m. because that's when they come home from the restaurant. And so they wouldn't have been able to be in on there. So I'll actually add the link to the YouTube channel in the chat right here. And I highly recommend telling your parents about it because there's one about financial aid. There is one about orientation, housing. A lot of information that we already talked about has already been posted. Now, obviously, with orientation, there are updates. So how is orientation going to happen this year? Essentially, you're going to be signing up for a time slot now. Before it used to be that everybody comes in on one day at a specific between a specific time and everybody moves in. This year, because we need to social distance and we need to have only X amount of people in the building at one time,
you're actually going to sign up for a time slot to move in, and you have 2 hours to move in. You can bring 2 family members with you. Preferably, they say adults who can help you move. In the past, we were very lucky to have our football team on campus 2 weeks before everybody else, and the football team would have gotten a day off to help the rest of campus move in. So we used to have kind of these big muscly guys help everybody move in, but obviously that's not going to be able to happen this year. So you do need to have 2 adults with you. If it's a sibling and they're stronger than your dad, go ahead and bring your sibling instead. But maximum is that you have 2 people who can come with you to move in. However, you can, I think, drive back and forth on the weekends. That's totally up to you. They're just not going to be allowed into your dorm room because they would be considered outsiders. You can leave. You're not, it's, what did our dean say? It's not prison. So as a joke, we called her Warden Phillips because she's like a prison warden. She's like, it's not prison. You can leave. You can come back and forth from campus. You just can't have other family members come inside the building. How they're going to do it is they're going to call it kind of like a family. So there's going to be a specific number of students in like a pod dorm. So maybe like the east wing of Walter Hall would be one family. So you can, those within your family pods, it's going to be a little bit more lax because then that way you can go into each other's rooms and still kind of have that social interaction. Whereas you might not be able to have that if you're not in that specific pod, if your family pod is, you know, your friend is in another dorm room. And that's, again, only this year when we're kind of in the middle of this pandemic because of COVID, there are a lot of changes coming. If you're from out of state, I know we have a couple people here who are from out of state. The governor just mandated that masks will be worn indoors in all indoors places. So you will have to have a mask with you, but you'll be able to have 2 people help you move in. And I believe that answered kind of most of the questions. And any questions?
Gina, I would say that just so you guys know, the first day of class is August 31st. So the last day in August. So August 31st, if you have class on Monday, you might not have class on Monday. And then the orientation will probably start the 27th of August. Orientation is where you're going to be put into like pods. You're going to be getting to know other students. There's going to be online versions for orientation. So this is where you're getting like an intro to campus. There's some fancy like speeches that happen. And then really, is it the 24th, August 24th? That's as early as you can anticipate getting your move-in day?
It's actually going to be changed to, I believe, Monday the 22nd, because everything's going to be spreading out. Incoming freshman students will have first priority and move in, and then returning students, they'll probably start moving in on the weekend on the 27th or 28th. So you guys will be moving in the first on campus, outside of students who are going to a voyage trip or athletics. And so the dates are going to be time slots that you sign up for, likely going to be a different time than your roommate is going to be. So you probably won't be moving in at the same time as your roommate. But there will be slots, specific dates. I believe Denise is going to announce it. So the reason why I asked about lunch with the boxer, this week we're resting. Next week we actually have the dean coming in, Sarah Phillips, giving us a whole update about COVID. And then the following week on July, let me see my calendar here. What's the date? July 16th is actually going to be Denise Giesberg from Orientation and Move In. And so she's going to probably have a lot more concrete information at that point. Lunch with the Boxer series, I'll also add the link on there. You just need to register for it ahead of time, and register is just to ensure that we don't have any Zoom bombing. Otherwise, if we post the link to it, there's been some incidences where people who shouldn't be in the room have been in the room. And so we kind of want to, that's the only reason why we have you register for it. Super easy Google form. You just type in your name and who your counselor is and your email address. And then on the morning of, I'll send you guys a registration link. And so come to those sessions if you can,
or watch those YouTube videos afterwards. You can have a small refrigerator for your dorm room. You can also rent if you want to, but I do know it's a little bit more expensive to rent. Like, it's almost the same price as buying one and renting one. So it might be cheaper for you to buy one. And you can always put it in storage or take it with you over the summer. I can tell you, at the basement of Night Hall, we have like 5 mini fridges and like a bike and a rug that the students left with us. And, you know, reach out to your admissions counselor. I have one kid who just was like, hey, Gina, can I store some of my stuff? Because he didn't have a storage room that he rented with friends. That's another thing that a lot of students do if you're from out of state, especially from our families from Hawaii. I know obviously it's a lot harder to fly things in and out of the island. Essentially, there are storages on campus nearby. And I think basically a lot of like students will chip in like 5 other friends, and they'll just cram everything into that storage box, and it's like $60 for the entire summer, and they just kind of split it 3 ways. So it's super cheap to store everything in the storage containers, and then when you come back, you can take it out of storage. So that's actually a very popular option for our students. So that was a very, very quick overview about everything. I know that was kind of
a lot.
I'm going to open it up to questions. So go ahead and open it up. Maddie and Rudy is going to be here. Feel free to add it in the chat room. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. That's my dog trying to make a bed for himself on my backpack. I'm going to find the YouTube channel link, and then Maddie can help and Rudy can help with questions.
Yeah, if any of you, I know that we kind of said it was an hour and a half, so if any of you have to go, feel free to leave, no worries. But we're going to stay on as long as you guys have questions. So Zoe, it looks like, oh, Ethan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have to go. I was going to ask, is this going to be posted onto the YouTube channel?
Yes.
Okay,
awesome.
Thank you.
I just added that link on there, so you guys can, it's Boxer Pacific. You can Google Boxer Pacific. It's a picture of our statue on YouTube, and you'll be able to see it, or you can click on the link.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
One question I see on here is about financial aid. The cost of dorm and meals is included in your financial aid package.
Excellent. Any questions? So we had a question on a parking pass.
Here.
Hi, Romeo. Oh my gosh, Megan has a dog too.
What kind of dog is that? Is it Chihuahua?
She's half Chihuahua and half Pomeranian.
This guy's full Pomeranian. We just
I have a Pomchi too.
Sarah, get your dog.
Everyone's getting their dogs now.
This is show and tell for dogs.
Yes.
There it is. All right. Any questions? Any other questions that you guys have?
Zoe had a question on parking pass. So you will be able to get a parking pass once you're on campus, and you'll go to the student life office. So it's going to be in Clark Hall. And this is, we can send you more information on this. We'll send you guys answers to your questions, but you're going to go to the student life office and you sign up for a parking pass where you give them your license plate number. And then it's $50 to park your car on campus all year.
The only thing, and you'll hear a lot of our students gripe about parking and saying there's not enough parking. So a parking permit doesn't guarantee you a spot. It allows you to park on campus. So that's something that you need to remember. But I can tell you, it's kind of relative, I'll be honest with you. Campus is pretty small, so it just might be that you might not be able to park next to the building that you want to park. You might have to park on the other end of campus. Our campus is about 55 acres. It's actually not that bad. I'm 5 foot nothing. Like, I'm 5'0". I'm pretty short. And so from one end of campus to the other end, it'll take me like a good 10 minutes on a good day, I'll be honest with you. And so it might be just a little bit of a walk. At UCSC, it used to be $600 for 6 months for parking. And there was never any parking. So literally there was zero parking. So it's kind of relative. You'll hear a lot of students. That's probably the number one gripe that a lot of students have, is that there's never enough parking. It's just going to be a little bit further out. It just won't be next to the building that you want to park in. So
When do we have to decide if we'll physically be attending or doing the online classes? I believe they asked for July 30th as the date. However, we understand because this whole situation changes within day to day, from week to week, that if you want to change your mind, you absolutely can. It's going to be hybrid for everybody, so you don't have to. The only piece would be housing, that we need to make sure that we have housing set for you if you do decide to come onto campus. So July 30th, I believe, was the date that we asked everybody to make a decision. But that's the great thing about being in a small school. Nothing is ever set in stone. Just reach out to your admissions counselor if you change your mind, and we'll make sure to get you into the right process to make sure to get you on there. And if somebody wants to get how different is online versus remote classes, will it the recording of the actual class?
From what they've told us, it's going to be a live stream. It's going to vary from professor to professor, but from what they've told us, it's going to be the same classes as if you were there in person. Some professors will do small breakout sessions where you're talking with other students, so that might look a little different. Zoom is the platform that a lot of colleges use, so becoming comfortable, which you guys are already experts, I can already tell. So this is probably a platform that you'll be using as you kind of go into your classes.
Yeah. So it'll be different from class to class and professor to professor. I had a student who just told me she's a junior now, and I was like, how are online classes? And she was like, it was kind of hard. There was one teacher who actually just recorded a lecture beforehand. We just had to watch it and then hop into the Zoom session, and worked really well for her. Other classes, it was just all a live stream. So it'll be all different.
Angelina asked, what type of resume do you need for work study? Great question. A really basic resume that shows your summer jobs, that shows that you make sure you put Pacific University on there, that you're a freshman. So we have the Career Development Center on campus. This is a center that can actually help you with your resume. So there's Heidi, she's amazing there. And so if you wanted to get a little bit of a rough draft and then email it over to them this summer, you could, getting ready for work study positions.
And those services are free for all students and alum.
Yes,
you don't have to have a resume for work study. That's also something that you have to have. There's a separate application that you can for, and typically, at least for the admissions office, what we ask for is availability, and that's really what is going to be kind of the number one factor for us when we're hiring students is your availability, and that's going to help. And one thing that I always tell my students is I don't want to know your class schedule. I want to know what your availability to work is, and I know that's going to help a lot of the professors as well. So help. And it's a bit unrelated. Our performing arts still operating this semester. We had a session with Dr. Michael Birch-Pace. He's the director of the band. And from what I understand in that session was that, yes, we are still operating. Likely we'll be doing the social distancing. And we probably will not have an audience. If we do have an audience, it will probably be very, very limited. We might not be able to invite, family members to the performance. It might be only open for our students on campus. So the plan is that we will still have these sessions, but it's going to be looking a little bit different because of having to social distance. So it'll probably be on a live feed somewhere, just kind of like how we have our games posted on a live feed. We'll probably have our performing arts as well too. Templates for resumes. You can actually Google a bunch. My suggestion is there's when we have, when I've been looking at resumes, there are two types of resumes that have been popping up. One is kind of the traditional one, and the second one is a very subjective type of resume that I've seen where people will have like bar graphs about their skill sets and stuff. My suggestion from a professional point of view, as somebody who's reviewed applications and resumes, maybe not have the subjective bar graphs on there, because it doesn't really tell me where you got that bar graph from and what you're kind of comparing it to.
be safe with your resume. Look up traditional resumes, and that'll give you a good template. And you should be able to kind of copy and paste from there as well.
Mhm. I also, weird fact, for a year or so, I worked at PCC, Portland Community College, helping people with their resumes. So actually, if you want to send it to me, I can help you. So send it over. I can work with you this summer. We can schedule time to work on it together if you want it. So there's things that people do on campus that they enjoy, and resumes is one of the things I enjoy. So
yeah. Absolutely. You can email Maddie, you can email me. I can give you, pointers from resumes that I've seen in the past that have stood out, and resumes in the past that stood out in a negative way. So being in the professional field, we can definitely help you with that. During the modified fall term, will there be a break? Are there going to be any COVID testing on campus? The break, I don't know, are we doing fall break this year?
No, we are not doing fall break this year.
We're not doing fall break this year? Okay, fall break sounds like it's a long time. It's actually just one day, which is like 2 weeks into semester. So it sounds like we're not going to be doing fall break this year. Probably not going to have a break. Typically, it used to be Thanksgiving break, and then everybody would come back. But with COVID right now, everybody is expected to go home for Thanksgiving and stay home and finish classes online. Your final will be online as well. You don't have to. Some students will opt to come back, or if you leave for Thanksgiving break, you have to stay off campus. If you decide you want to stay on campus, then you need to stay over Thanksgiving break. It's the kind of exposure from being back and forth that we really want to limit. So if you want to stay past Thanksgiving and stay until the initial fall semester is over, you can, but that would also be meaning that you miss out on Thanksgiving with family. But there will probably be some type of COVID testing. There is a COVID task force that is meeting every day. And within that COVID task force, there are like a million subcommittees as well too. And we are getting updates depending on who is on what subcommittee. And there's so many different subcommittees, one with orientation, housing, advising, registration, athletics, and a million different things. So we'll give you an update. And this is something that I tell a lot of our students and families is our president, Catholic. Her background is in infectious diseases. Same with Sarah Phillips, our Dean of College of Arts and Sciences. She did 2 years at Yale Medical School in infectious diseases. And so literally the president and the dean, this is their expertise. And so they're kind of taking things a lot more conservatively than some of the other universities because they know how viruses spread and they know what is okay to do and what is not okay to do. So you are literally in the hands of experts who are running this university, who know what to do with viruses and how to contain it and all of that stuff. So we are very, very lucky to have Leslie Halleck and Sarah Phillips' background in infectious diseases. They literally know what they're doing. And so that's why I think we are 100% confident in how fall is going to look like because we have these experts. And let me tell you, in every meeting that we've had with them, it's always very much like whatever is going to be the safety for students, that's the number one concern. So obviously we want to have a regular fall semester. They know that's not safe, so they're not going to allow it. And that's why we've allowed you guys to be able to have your choice in whether or not you want to be here on campus or do things online. So we're all in good hands with Leslie and Sarah because they actually know what they're doing. So
yeah, and to go to, I guess, those question of whether or not you can leave campus, the breaks are going to be a little bit different, so like fall break. But day to day, you still are going to have the opportunity to go see family that live in the area. What they're probably going to do, and to keep this in mind, is that if you're living on campus, there's going to be some information that you'll have to share with those that you're living with. So that's going to be an individual basis, but really you guys are still going to have the freedoms that you have to go out, on a hike, to go see family, to do things outside of Pacific. There will still be options. Yeah, good question.
Perfect. Any other questions that you guys have for us? I know it's been kind of a really long session, so we thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, you guys deserve like a nap and
Yeah, I
food.
guess so.
How do will study abroad programs still be an option?
Good question.
Good question. In probably, to be honest, probably not this coming fall and probably not this spring. But in a couple years, yes. And to be honest, the best time to do your study abroad is like late sophomore year, junior year. So ideally, things will be back to somewhat normal and you'll be able to engage in those study abroad opportunities. Yeah, good question.
Very good question. Our students who were abroad in the spring were called back,
And they had to take classes online to finish up their semester. But we do have students who plan on going back to finish or to do another study abroad. So our next session is actually going to be introducing you to our First Gen Club, as well as talk a little bit about this First Gen study abroad opportunity that we have. We realize a lot of our First Gen students don't have the opportunity to study abroad like some of our other students do. And so our professors actually went ahead and applied for a grant to help you guys be able to go abroad. So there is literally a grant opportunity that is separated just for you guys to be able to study abroad. So that opportunity is open for you. It just depends on what it's going to look like. Likely not within the next year, because it's not just the US, but an entire world pandemic. And so that's why, obviously some countries, it might be, okay to travel to. Other countries, it might not be. So this coming year, to be on the safe side, I would say typically probably not, but the following year and your sophomore year, we'll probably have some opportunities for you. Great. Any other questions? Oh my God, you guys survived 2 hours.
That was a lot of boring information.
I know.
It's just
Did great.
so.
Thank you so much for sticking around with us. We appreciate this. We'll have our second session coming. We'd love to have you guys again. So we'll see you. Enjoy summer. Good luck at registration. And you're going to be super excited about your new class schedules. And we'll see you guys in about a month.
Yeah. Let us know if you guys have any questions or you need help with anything.
Yeah.
Bye, Fisher.